So again, if we are not making time for ourselves without distractions, whatever it is that we are trying to avoid internally is just going to keep being reflected externally. That is a law of attraction. You don't attract what you want, you attract what you are, or what you are a vibrational match to. So find a way to... Hello, beautiful beings of light. My name is Monica, and today's video is titled, You Literally Can't Run Away from Yourself, and here's why. So this theme has been kind of coming to me all week, and today when I was in the shower, I had a download, and I wanted to share that message with all of you guys here on the channel today. In today's modern society, there are tons of ways that we can try to run away from ourselves or try to avoid ourselves. And what I mean by avoiding ourselves, it sounds kind of weird because it's like we're always with ourselves, so how can we avoid ourselves or run away from ourselves? But what I'm talking about is distractions. I've been thinking about how much energy and time I put into other things and into people that I don't put into myself. I think about all the celebrity gossip that I had learned over the years, mostly when I was younger. I knew who was dating who and all the celebrities' kids' names, but I didn't really know a whole lot about myself. I kind of knew things that were shallow on the surface, such as things that I liked or disliked, and my occupation, and very basic facts about my personality, I guess you could say. But I didn't know a whole lot about my soul, about my heart's desire. I wasn't really in touch with my intuition, and I didn't really know what was going on in my inner world. I could tell you all about what was going on in the outer world, what was trending, what some things that were happening in the world, current events, but not a whole lot about myself. And the other day I was sitting down and I was looking at my body and I was thinking, I don't even know the names of the bones in my body. I don't know all of the organs in my body. I mean, I know we learn a lot of that stuff in school, like you have a spleen and you have a liver and you have 2 lungs, but it's not something I really think about very often. And I don't really know what's going on inside my body. It's kind of freaky. I mean, I do to an extent. Like I know my heart pumps blood and it circulates through my body, but I don't really fully internally know like my physical body and what it does. And that's why we rely on medical doctors to figure out our body for us, but we're the only ones who truly can understand from experience being in our body or what is going on internally with us. But going back to all of the distractions that we have, and not everything has to be labeled as a distraction. It's really the intention behind what we're doing or why we're doing something. Like you can watch TV and be present and be conscious as you're watching TV, or you can consciously or subconsciously have an intention to watch the TV in order to distract yourself from doing something else or from being with yourself and getting to know yourself internally and what's going on in your world. But a lot of times we use people and things as a distraction. We have, like I said, TV, so many movies and so many TV shows and so many streaming services such as Netflix that it's easy to access TV 24/7. A lot of times we binge watch certain TV shows late into the night and we really don't get enough sleep that we need. We sacrifice that sleep. And back in the day, there wasn't 24/7 TV, there wasn't internet and streaming services, so you really only had a certain time limit that you could watch TV throughout the day. Now it's unlimited. Same with now we have social media. You can check social media pretty much any time of the day, or you can just mindlessly scroll and scroll and scroll. And as I'm saying these things, I am not intending to place judgment on anyone watching these videos who do these things. I'm speaking from personal experience. I definitely unconsciously will scroll through social media or mindlessly watch TV and not really be present. And that is something that I continually work on daily. It's not just a one and done thing for me. It's a constant reminder to become present before doing those things. Other distractions can be surrounding ourselves with a lot of friends, in the sense of like not making time for ourselves. But if we have a lot of friends and they're constantly inviting us to things, and even if we don't really want to go, or we choose to go just because we don't want to be alone. A lot of people have this fear of being alone, and you can definitely be alone and not be lonely. I am alone a good amount of the time, maybe not physically, but like, you know, my husband will be working and I'll be doing my own thing somewhere else in the RV or outside, or like filming here in the truck. And I really like my own presence, my own energy, my own company. I like to sort through my thoughts and kind of observe them and let, you know, and feel my emotions and make time for that now. I wasn't always like that, but I've definitely gotten more like that. But yeah, a lot of people are afraid to be alone, so they will constantly surround themselves with lots of people. And you know, you've probably heard that term of people saying that, you know, you could be in a crowded room and still feel lonely. And I think that happens to quite a lot of people, and they don't really understand why. So you can distract yourself, like I said, with friends, with parties, with events, with just going out, with going to the club, and, you know, just drinking and just trying. And that's another one, is drinking and drugs definitely can be a form of escape from ourselves, and or trying to escape ourselves. It's a very temporary escape. It's not a very permanent or a sustainable way of escaping yourself. And it's only like a partially, like you can never fully escape yourself when you're alive, but you can kind of partially become unconscious so that you're not fully conscious in your body. It's kind of like your astral body is kind of floating like half in, half out of your body. So, like I said, you can't fully escape yourselves, but drugs and alcohol do contribute to becoming maybe more unconscious about yourself, more unaware of like your thoughts and your feelings and your actions and your vibration and all of those sorts of things. And all addictions, including food addiction, which is something I've struggled with for a long time. And, you know, gambling, shopping, sex, you name it. There's all sorts of addictions. Those are definitely a way that we, like I said, consciously or subconsciously try to run away from ourselves or distract ourselves or avoid ourselves. And another one is being like a serial dater, where you're constantly in a relationship, where you can't be single. I've had a lot of friends like this growing up, female friends who cannot fathom the thought of not being in a relationship and being alone and spending more time with themselves. And I personally didn't really have a problem with that. I didn't date too much, and I was very selective about who I would date. And like I said, I just liked being alone for the most part. If I had, you know, a small group of friends, like really good, high quality friends, I was happy. You know, I didn't want to be totally alone all the time, but I definitely like to spend some time alone and being with myself. So those are just a few examples. Also, I just keep thinking of more, but this will be the last one. News. News is a big one. A lot of people like to get and watch the news all the time, read the news. That's another thing that's 24/7. That wasn't always like that back in the day. You didn't have 24/7 access to news in all of its forms, whether it's on the radio or it's on the TV or it's on social media or it's on the newspaper. It's just absolutely everywhere, and it's 99% negativity that is just used as propaganda to promote fear. And a lot of people buy into that. They distract themselves with that. They lower their vibration into fear, And that is chronically what is on their mind. They're not really tuning into their inner world because they're so focused on the outer world and what the news is telling them is going on. So now that we've got those examples out of the way, again, there are many, many more, but we're going to move on. But you still, in my opinion, and as I always say, take what resonates, leave what doesn't. If it resonates for you, then the message is for you. If it doesn't resonate, then the message is not for you. These are just my own personal beliefs and truths, and I'm just sharing them here with you guys. So, you literally can't run away from yourself, though, because here on Earth, here in the third dimensional space, we are energetic beings. Everything is made from energy. All energy vibrates. All vibrations emit a frequency. It's a frequency that most of us can't hear or see, but we're all doing it. We all have auras and energetic fields that span, I think they say about 10 feet, but I'm sure it can be a lot larger. So we affect everyone and everything that we come into contact with on a vibrational level. And some people who are very sensitive to energies, such as empaths, may notice these energies. Actually, they will notice these energies, maybe without even realizing it, but other people sometimes don't. They don't pick it up. Like, we can sense how the energy is in the room, if it's tense, if it's light, how other people are feeling, that sort of thing. So also, because of the law of attraction, which we talk about a lot here, the law of attraction works by us manifesting and creating our own realities, and also co-creating. And we can intentionally manifest things, and we do unintentionally manifest things when we're not aware of our vibration, our frequency that we're emitting, because we're not aware of what is going on in our subconscious mind. And subconscious meaning below, it's kind of like the bottom of the iceberg. And also because of our shadows. We are in a dualistic world where there's light and dark, up and down, and the conscious is kind of like the light, and the subconscious is the dark, which is where our shadows live. And an example would be like if you grew up in a family who didn't really appreciate music, and they were all about like science and becoming doctors and scientists, but you really had a gift for music. You loved hearing music, singing music, performing, playing instruments, writing music, whatever it is. And your family did not support your music or your talent. And in fact, they tried to discourage you from it. And so you kind of buried that talent and desire away, and maybe went into a career field that they thought was more suitable, such as being a doctor or a scientist. But you weren't in alignment with what maybe one of your missions here on Earth is to do, or maybe it's your sole purpose. You're supposed to be doing something with music. And so we have that shadow aspect of ourselves, like whatever we deem as unworthy, whatever aspects of ourselves that we deem to be unworthy, or the world we think, our society, our family, our friends deems to be unworthy, then we tend to bury it down in our subconscious, in our shadows, maybe certain feelings as well, like resentment, but we don't realize that we're feeling it because we've put it aside. And so then we keep attracting things in our life that we feel resentful for, but we can't quite figure out why we keep attracting those things. Another thing is, it's kind of funny to me now that I see it, but if you watched my video, I think it was titled, "What is the Meaning of Life?" And basically what I said in that video is that the meaning of life is to get to know ourselves. A lot of people are trying to get to know God, not realizing that we are gods and goddesses because we're all from the same source. And I described it kind of like as if we were, if the sun was source, and all of us were the rays that were in, and all of us were the rays that emit from the sun, like we were particles of energy in those sun rays. We are not separate from the sun. we're still a part of the sun. We just have our own individual, unique, energetic signature. But we are all still part of the same whole. And here on Earth, as far as I've researched and what's resonated with me, Earth is pretty much the only place in the universe and all the galaxies that we don't remember that we are not separate. I mean, technically we do when we're born. We're born closer, we're born still remembering more about where we come from, like our connection to source and who we are. And we live from a place of love. We live from our heart space. And then after a certain age, or maybe after certain experiences, we start to develop an ego. And we start to follow our ego mind more than we follow our heart, or we might really ignore our heart altogether. And the ego is all about separation. It's competitive. It can be judgmental. And those are all things that just create separation between people. And then at some point, we may have some kind of experience, such as a spiritual awakening, that reminds us that we are not just physical beings. We are not our ego mind. We are beings of love. We are all connected from the same source. And it is more fulfilling to live from our heart and do things out of love instead of following our ego and trying to compete with everyone else, which is why I believe they call humans the human race. They want us to all race against each other and just focus on those physical differences to create more divide and separation. Let's say that there is someone who is avoiding themselves through being a chronic serial dater, never being single, someone who is very preoccupied with their career. They work all kinds of crazy hours, and they're addicted to food. And whenever they feel uncomfortable with themselves, such as their thoughts or their emotions, then they will seek out one of these things in order to distract themselves, whether it be working more, or if they broke up with someone, then they're going to find another relationship and they're going to be working on getting into another relationship as soon as the breakup happens. Or they start eating a bunch of junk food to try to suppress their feelings down. What's going to happen is whatever they're feeling subconsciously that they're trying to avoid, and that's the biggest thing I think we try to avoid, is just our emotions, to avoid our lower vibrational emotions such as sadness or anger or guilt or shame, because it feels so uncomfortable. We don't know how to deal with it, that we do physical things to distract ourselves. I think that's the main thing. But let's use just one of those examples. This being in a relationship all the time. Let's say that they've been in several relationships just in a year, and they keep going through the same thing where they keep attracting a partner that is emotionally unavailable, unsupportive, and then they feel abandoned, or they do abandon them. And then they go to a new person, and the same thing ends up happening in the end. And they just can't figure out, why do I keep attracting the same person in the same type of relationship? Because I'm attracting and dating different people, but it's always the same result. One thing that they could discover if they spent time with themselves, with no distractions, even just a few minutes a day, what might surface for them from their subconscious is that the reason they keep attracting people who they feel abandoned by is because they are abandoning themselves. And they are abandoning themselves by constantly distracting themselves and not listening to themselves. And a lot of us continue to abandon ourselves with distractions, with addictions, with so much judgment that we place on ourselves that we don't even want to look at ourselves. We don't want anything to do with ourselves. But the ironic part, of course, is that we are the one person that we will be with forever, from the moment we're born until the moment we die. And so the relationship is just one example, but people keep, but this person may also keep attracting jobs that they feel super unhappy with because they feel like they keep getting a lot of work to do, get assigned a lot of work, but they're not making much money and they're not really progressing in their career, and they keep jumping from job to job to job, hoping that it'll be different, but they just keep attracting the same circumstance. Different environment, it's all physically changed, different coworkers, different bosses, but it still ends up being unsatisfactory and for the same exact reasons. So basically, whatever we are physically trying to avoid within ourselves, our inner world, our emotions, feelings, we are going to keep seeing reflected in our everyday life, in all of the people that we surround ourselves with, friends. Sometimes it'll trigger things in our family that maybe wasn't triggered before, in our career, in our relationships, with money. I mean, you name it, even with our bodies. I think that all diseases and illnesses, ailments, have a physical reason and also have a metaphysical or spiritual or energetic reason behind it. A lot of times, unprocessed emotions can be stored in different parts of our bodies. There's actually some really cool, I think there's one website that I found, and I can link it below if I remember, that will give you the emotional causes behind a lot of different diseases and illnesses and ailments. And one of them that I have is my shoulders hurt a lot. Like every day, it seems like it hurts a little bit more. And it's not like I'm lifting things or doing push-ups or doing anything like that. I'm just doing my normal everyday routine. But I notice sometimes it gets to the point where it's painful. And so I've had to ask my husband, who graciously has accepted the role of giving me massages for a few minutes every day. And he's really good at finding the kinks or the knots and like working those out. And it hurts at first as he's doing it, because he has to put a lot of pressure to really work, like it's really deep in there. But then afterwards I feel so much looser and I feel so much better. So that is a physical way for me to work on my issues with my shoulders. Oh, and the reasoning for that, I read, is when you have issues with your shoulders, like a lot of pain, it's because you're carrying a lot of weight. Like you feel like you have the burden of the world on your shoulders and you're constantly carrying it. And so like I said, I have a physical way of taking care of it. And then the emotional way is I spend time with myself and figuring out why I feel like I have the weight of the world on my shoulders. So then I can process those emotions and those subconscious beliefs and reprogram them. And that's something I've been working on, and I'm feeling so much better. Like my shoulders feel like 80% better than they have in a long time. So again, if we are not making time for ourselves without distractions, whatever it is that we are trying to avoid internally is just going to keep being reflected externally. That is a law of attraction. You don't attract what you want, you attract what you are, or what you are a vibrational match to. So if you're feeling guilt and shame and resentment, then you most likely are going to start seeing or experiencing more people and things and situations that will also reflect or also cause you to feel those same emotions. So now let's talk about a solution for this, my advice. So my advice for this is to simply start being. And this one is something people have told me for a while that I didn't quite understand, and I'll try to explain it as best as I can. So we are called human beings for a reason and not human doers. But in this world, depending on where you live especially, being busy and doing something physically all the time is something that is promoted in a lot of our societies, including here in America where I am. And it's also celebrated. People working all the time and not taking vacations and not taking sick days and making their company tons of money or getting them tons of clients. That is what I would say is considered like corporate success or just success in general. For a lot of people, that's a belief, even though it doesn't make them happy. So on the opposite end of that spectrum is being, which is what we are. We are spiritual beings having a human physical experience. And so the best way to be present, be with yourself, is to find what helps you get into a relaxed kind of meditative state. Whatever it is that can help you to become in tune with your internal world. And some examples of this, the number one that I always suggest is meditation. And we hear this all the time. It's like every spiritual person, teacher is always talking about meditation, and a lot of people are like, I don't have time for that, or I don't know how, or I try to, but I can't stop my thoughts. The goal is not to stop your thoughts, is to become aware of your thoughts. I notice I have a lot of thoughts going on all the time. It feels like a million miles per hour, where I'm not even aware of a lot of my thoughts because they're habitual. Our thoughts are habitual, and we have like tens of thousands of thoughts every single day, most of them subconscious, and being the same as yesterday and the day before that, and usually primarily negative. Unfortunately, that's just a lot of the programming. Meditation does not have to be sitting down in lotus position with your eyes closed. It can be going for a walk. When you're on your walk, make sure that you're not checking Instagram, you're not checking your messages, your phone, or your emails. You're simply just there to connect and be in nature and be with yourself. That's one of my favorite ones. Sometimes I will just sit outside and I'll stare at, like right now I have cacti in front of me and mountains, and I will stare at the scenery, and if there's nature sounds like birds, I'm clairaudient, so like sounds really help me to feel grounded. And that's the thing too, is being and grounding, I think, are kind of the same things or very similar things. So I like to listen to like birds or crickets or just whatever's outside, ocean waves, water, river, wherever I am. Focus. There's two things you could do. One of the things I like to do is I like to focus on an animal or an insect if there's one nearby. Like sometimes I'll just watch ants. I know that might sound weird. I know we used to do that as kids, but I'll just like watch a colony of ants. I'll watch one ant and follow it and see what it's doing and what it's carrying, and it gets me very present and grounded and very like just in a flow like of being. My one of my friends said that what she does is she'll close her eyes and listen to everything, like in her house. Like she'll hear the fridge come on, or the heat, or the AC. She'll hear cars outside, and just like the more focused you get on just one of your senses, such as hearing, then it helps you to become more grounded in your body and more present in your environment. And that will kind of slow down eventually the monkey mind, as they call it, with all the thoughts and, oh my gosh, I have to go grocery shopping, and I got to go pick up this thing, and I got to do that errand, and I got to call this person, which is constantly on our minds because we physically do so much throughout the day, because we do have a lot of responsibilities. And yes, we are busy as a society, but even doing this for 5 minutes can make a big difference. I typically like to do at least 20 minutes a day. Sometimes I'll break it up, like 10 minutes in the AM and then 10 minutes in the PM before bed. But even just a few minutes a day will make such a dramatic difference than not doing it at all, even doing it for 1 minute. And I don't always like time exactly how long I'm going to meditate. Sometimes I'll just do it until I feel, I don't know, I just feel calmer, and it gets quicker and quicker to the point where I will have a lot of thoughts, and then they'll just kind of dissipate, and eventually I'll feel like I'm fully present in my body, and I'm being, and I'm in my heart space and not in my mind. And you can also, what would really help and be powerful is to set intentions for your meditation. Like if there is a certain question that you really want an answer to, you can set the intention to find the answer to the question, ask it out loud or in your head, and then do your meditation. And what I realized for me is I don't typically get the answer right then and there as I'm meditating. I will get it later on throughout the day, or maybe even the next couple of days. And it'll be at some random time. I'll just be driving and I'll be like, oh my gosh, that's the reason for blah, 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 blah. And I'll get that download. And I'm like, oh, that's awesome. Or maybe you'll hear it, the answer in a song. Maybe someone around you in public will say something that triggers something for you, or you'll read it somewhere, you'll find an article or whatever. It can come in all kinds of ways. Just try to be open to whatever way that answer can come for you. For me, it's typically just like, I think it's claircognizance. I just have that like knowing, like it just, like I said, it's like a download of just, it pops into my head and I'm like, okay, that's the answer. But those are just clairaudience and that are like my two strongest psychic abilities, I believe. But it can come in any form for you. And I'm going to give an example that I thought of earlier. What we really need to do by being is to make space in our awareness and our consciousness to bring the unconscious conscious. So an example would be like, let's say there's someone who has an extremely full house. Like every corner, every inch, every nook, every cranny is filled with stuff in this house, to the point where you literally cannot bring anything else into this house, right? So that house example is our minds, our consciousness, our monkey minds that are constantly thinking about what we need to do and whatever, right? And then we have a basement in this house, and this basement is full of things too. And there's something that we feel like we have down there in the basement that we want to look for, but we're not sure if we have it or if we got rid of it or anything like that. So we go down there and it's dark. Let's say there's no lights, and you shine a light, like you have a flashlight, and you start looking through all the stuff. And you found the thing. You're like, oh my goodness, this is what I needed. And you want to bring it back up to the surface of the house, of, you know, the top level from the basement, but you can't because there's literally no room. The basement being our subconscious, like the bottom of the iceberg, the shadow aspects that we're not aware of. We can't bring those unconscious shadows to the surface, to the light, if we don't make space. And because we fill our conscious mind so full, we don't make any space to bring awareness to whatever it is that we're not aware of. So by simply being a few minutes a day and making this a very consistent practice, because this to me is just as important, if not more important, than physically doing things. I think it's a balance of physically doing things and just being with ourselves and being present and grounded, like I said. So by meditating a few minutes a day, or being or doing anything, like you could, if you like to knit or you like to do puzzles, that's something that could help you get into a being state, a flow state, and then you make room for the unconscious to become conscious. So if we don't practice doing that, and we keep avoiding and distracting ourselves and trying to run away from ourselves, then we're going to keep running into ourselves in a way, because we keep reflecting, or we keep attracting people who reflect those buried, hidden things in us that we don't want to acknowledge, that we don't want to see. We are all, with the law of attraction, we are all reflections of each other, right? So that is why you can never really run away from yourself or avoid yourself entirely, no matter how hard you try. So if you're ready to change your life, if you're ready to manifest something new, if you're ready to attract different, new, better opportunities, a better relationship, a better body, whatever it is that you want to attract, then start being with yourself consciously. Make room for whatever, sorry about the lighting, for whatever is buried to come to the surface, even if it's scary, even if it's ugly, even if it's hard, if it's difficult, Otherwise, we're still going to be living with looking at whatever we don't want to look at from an outside perspective. But if we take care of it internally first, then we can change the outer world. It's kind of like Aaron Doughty would say this thing, I remember, about like, wow, he would say something like, imagine looking into the mirror and you're not smiling. And you go to the mirror and you try to make yourself smile by, touching the mirror. But you can't change your smile by trying to change the outside reflection. It has to come internally. You smile, and then the outside reflection in the mirror changes, and then you see yourself smiling. A lot of times we try to change how we feel by doing whatever we can in the physical world to change things or distract ourselves. But really, it's backwards. We need to go inside, internally first. Be with ourselves. Don't distract yourself, even just for a few minutes. And it will make such a big difference in your outer world. When you look at your outer world, if there's something you're not happy with, go into your inner world and figure out what it is that is vibrationally a match to you, that you are attracting that thing or that person or that situation. All right, losing the sun. This video is getting kind of long, but that's okay. I hope that you enjoyed this video, if you've made it this far. If you did, please give me a like to let it know that it resonates with you, or a comment. I love hearing from you guys. And as always, I hope to see you in my next video. Bye, everyone. Much love and peace.